part of this program for over a year and a half. I've been trained as a facilitator through the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm a trainer of these skills through the University of Pennsylvania. And I've heard a lot of stories. And I'm a trainer down at Victory University right now. And I've seen a lot of soldiers come through the program, and I hear their stories. And some of the same stories that General Tucker just mentioned that you saw highlighted up on the board. And these stories that they're telling me and that they're saying is, if I would have known these skills beforehand, I would have still been married. I would have still had my family. I wish I had these skills before my first, second, even third deployment. These soldiers are saying, these are our leaders. They're saying that they're teaching, going back, teaching these skills to their soldiers. They're teaching them problem-solving skills, how to communicate effectively, not just at work, but at home. And it's building connection. This is immediate feedback that they're receiving. These are the stories that I hear, the same stories as I teach at the University of Virginia, Fort Jackson, Victory University. They talk about when they take these skills back, when they graduate the program, they call back because we want to know how are they embedding these skills in the training. What is the outcome? And they're telling us that, and they're telling me that they're training these soldiers. They're giving them coping skills, life skills, so that they can figure out, the soldier themselves will figure out their own great potential to deal with adversities. And it's immediate. It's something that they can use right then on the spot and see the value added. When I first got started, imagine taking 150 soldiers, putting them in one room, and telling them we're going to train them for 10 days. One big room, and that's how it was at the University of Penn. We do at Victory University down at Fort Jackson. It's a little bit smaller. We got 60 per class right now. We're running as the program. But it's the same outcome. The first 2 days we see the look in their eyes, the skepticism. But by day 3, you notice a shift in their energy, a shift in their attitude, because these skills they are now embedding and internalizing within themselves. They're using them with their family members. They're using them with themselves. And by day 5, they're hooked. They want more. And this is what we commonly see. It's the same. My peers, I'm a sergeant major, so, you know, it's kind of, when soldiers see me, and, you know, that wall sometimes goes up to see a sergeant major sharing and talking and training and teaching, but also mentoring, but they get to see me as a person also. And when I talk to my peers, the other command sergeant major, senior leaders about this program, and those ones that went through the training, they also share the same stories. How this not only made them a better soldier, it made them a better person. And they want more. They want to be able to embed it in their programs that they have already. They mentioned about using this in counseling. These skills can be embedded in the counseling. We're teaching soldiers skills to identify when something not only is going on with themselves, but being able to focus and identify what is going on within the soldier too, and being able to get to the root of the problem and deal with it, be preventive and not react on it. And so, like I said before, I've been a part of this program for a year and a half. I'm a trainer and I'm a facilitator. I can train and I can teach these skills. But what I can't teach and what I can't train is passion. And what I tell you, these soldiers have passion for these skills. I hear it in these stories. I still get phone calls and I still get emails. So what I share with you, being at Victory University and being a trainer and an instructor, I see this every day. They want it. They're using it. They're being creative when they get back to their unit and putting it into what they already do. I know I don't have a lot of slides to show you, but I just wanted to be able to paint a picture with my words and the passion that I have about this program. That's all I have, sir.
Thanks a lot, Sergeant Major. That was excellent. So now we have a few minutes for some questions. So if anyone would like to ask a question to a specific panel member, you go ahead and stand up, let us know who you are and what your question is. We got a microphone coming over to you right now. Mrs. Gant.
Good afternoon. My name is Mrs. Gant. I'm coming out of Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. My question is, I am familiar with this program. Just Friday, I came out of a class, and the exact same thing Sergeant Major was talking about. These are the feedback that we're getting from Sergeant First classes, commanders coming in saying, I wish I had this 2 marriages ago. My position, I am a family readiness support assistant. I also am a family member, and I also was prior military, so I can see how this is going from all perspectives. I know this training has been offered to ACS, and the goal is to get it to the FRGs. However, my question is, how can we be more effective in reaching out to family members? As a FRISA, there's continuity. Presenting it to ACS is great, but just from my wisdom dealing with ACS, we're only reaching less than 10% of our family members. Bringing it to the battalion level with the FRISAs and the FRG brings more continuity. And I myself, I've sat down with my command team and staff, and we've worked away like a comprehensive family program type thing. But the problem and the challenge is getting DA civilians, FRGs to this training. I know that there is a team coming in February, but when I spoke about it, there's less than 4 slots for civilians. So how can we get this to the family members more effectively, bringing continuity and getting it to our family members? That's my question.
Well, I probably should address that, you know, at the top, at the program level. One thing that, and we are increasing the slots, and we're doubling the amount of MRTs we'll produce in FY11, thanks to Victory University and additional mobile training teams. And also, University of Pennsylvania will go up to 180 per class instead of 150. So by increasing that, this year we're able to get more slots to the folks that you're referring to. We did dedicate an entire class, 150, to MCOM, to DA civilians, and so that was a complete dedicated class to one part of our Army community and our Army family. So the message is loud and clear, just like all the leaders up here have said, that we need to make sure there's enough equity to reach out to all of our family members and all the DA civilians. So, I mean, we hear you. The other thing is that the GAT, it's just a little bit hard to get to through the gateway of AKO. And so we're about a week or 2 out from finally getting a DEERS website or another website to where family members can actually go and take the GAT without having to, you know, who's your favorite, you know, what's your favorite color, and did your sponsor, you know, allow you to come to the gateway today, and so forth, and all of that rigor that goes with AKO. We think we found a better portal. So that's good news for the GAT in terms of getting to family members, and then they can use the modules. So I think that'll be a big stride. But as far as the slots go, we'll take that into consideration and do the best we can. But our goal right now is 1 per battalion and 1 per brigade in the Army in FY11. And that'll be over 5,000. And right now we have 2,200. So there is a priority, and we do have reserve components that we also have to help out. And then when you look at all the MACOMs, I don't want to just tell you how hard the problem is, but I want to tell you that there are equities that we have to consider. But we will continually increase the slots to DA civilians, because I went over and I briefed all the folks over at HRC, Dr. Duncan and all her folks last month, and they have a program that will address how they're going to incorporate that into their civilian education program. So we'll do everything we can to meet your objectives, Ms. Gant, and thank you for all of your volunteerism and what you do out of Schofield Barracks. Any commanders want to comment on that?
If I could say something, I know.
Go ahead, General Brooks.
Yeah, thank you for the question. One of the things that we do while we're deployed is we run something called a Resilient Spouse Academy at Fort Riley. And it's a intensive 4-day program that helps to share with spouses of deployed soldiers what it is they can expect through the deployment and after the deployment as well. It has characteristics from the assist training program, but also the broader issues that can affect the family pillar when a soldier comes home. That's proving very, very beneficial for us right now. That's one of the ways we can get our spouses into this program without having to send them to the limited slots that you talked about. With that, we have some of our ACS leaders who have been through the training program. That opportunity you gave to us, we took advantage of, and they helped to lead this Resilient Spouse Academy. So just an option and a method that's showing good benefit for us.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Colonel Zacher.
I just wanted to say that I can see that there's with our FRG leaders, they recognize that the ACS there at Grafenwehr and Schweinfurt has a capability to train resiliency skills. But it's the closest there is not, we're not getting that closeness as we're getting from our FRGs doing it. But I want to make sure everybody here understands that we're a pilot, and this pilot will have some output from it. And it really, that output, if it's in fact beneficial, and I believe it will be, then of course Tom Vail and the crew of CSF are going to have to figure out how to make more slots in the future. But that's a ways away, as I understand that.
Which is also part of the problem because ACS is understaffed. And that poses another problem when it comes to their cross-training. So
I think General Lynch gave some great guidance to all the installation 3-stars and the major installation commanders during a course at Fort Belvoir 2 weeks ago. And he laid out how he, as the 3-corps commander, put a program together at Fort Hood to aggregate, sort of like Soldier 360 you have at Grafenwehr, and then you heard some of the other programs. So you definitely have the leadership at the top talking about the same issue that you're talking about let's get the programs going, and it's not just CSF, where we're one part of that aggregation of assets on post. So, and it was impressive how he had laid out Fort Hood in terms of facilities, resources, and making everyone focus. So, next question.
Hi. I'm sorry, I guess I have the mic. So I'm going to go. Forgive me for not standing because I'm just going to refer to my notes. Colonel Z, I'm going to call you because I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Who are you, ma'am? Who are you?
Christy Kaufman, Army wife, former battalion commander, spouse, FRG leader. So thank you for your comments because I agree wholeheartedly. Let me say, what you're doing in terms of at the pilot at brigade level, I think is awesome. The incentivification of what you're doing, I think, is really key because trying to find those platforms to get the spouses involved is much tougher, obviously, than getting the soldiers involved because you can't make us do anything. And after 9 years, we're kind of tired. And there's a lot of trainings that we've been to that have not been as effective. So I think that's wonderful. I have 3 questions, and I guess they can go to anybody. The first one is, I think that integrating the MRTs at battalion and brigade level is a great idea. I think we need to get better at putting them into those kind of resources into the units. My concern is, and I think you called it an additional skill identifier. It's not an MOS, right?
No, it is not an MOS. It's an additional skill identifier.
And you mentioned that you had that one platoon sergeant just focus on that for a while. What are we doing in terms of high-level Army implementation guidance to make sure that this doesn't turn into another kind of safety briefing, EO, sexual harassment type of situation where it's just kind of a check the block? Well, that's my first question.
Well, I can tell you based on the pilot that we're doing, how we're implementing at brigade, it's not that way because it's a mindset. And we have, and I did say that we've taken all of these MRTs and brought them to the brigade, but that's simply so that we maximize their time with the battalions and the companies and the platoons that they're training. There is the homework, which causes the MRT to go back down and review homework, and then there's going to be advanced modules and field modules that we're developing that the MRTs are going to instruct later for additional points. And then I imagine that we're looking towards, and I know our volunteers are thinking about it, how do we get modules for families, advanced family modules for more points? And I would like to say one other thing. The soldiers, getting the soldiers to do it is harder than getting the spouses to do it. They're lining up like crazy. It's amazing. So
are we going to take with the pilot, what you're doing with the pilot, which I think is excellent, is the big Army guidance going to be built off of that and saying this is one of the better ways to implement?
What we're going to do is on our website we'll have best practices, and then we'll show different methods for each installation. You've heard a couple of programs here. So I think using the best practice method on our website to disseminate all of those programs that work, we'll give a kind of a menu to other commanders to look at and say, I want to use this Also, General Casey will put out a CSA sends letter here very shortly, and also an order which will direct a certain amount of hours per quarter, one per battalion brigade, and it'll be a little bit more directive than in the past. In the past, he's talked to all the forums, all of the general officer forums on resiliency. Karen comes and speaks to a lot of the general officer forums, and so General Casey's made it loud and clear, and he's given guidance, and he's about to give more guidance in terms of directives on the programs. And he also wants commanders to come back and brief him back on how they do their resiliency programs at each 2-star and 3-star installation level sometime in the next, 2 or 3 months at a particular forum. He just wants to get feedback from all the commanders, and as you can see, our commanders here have already got the program, and they're already back briefing it to us. So it's a rehearsal for what they'll give to General Casey. So I think that kind of emphasis from the top that you mentioned will help.
And my second question is, and this is my primary concern with comprehensive soldier fitness, I think particularly as a family member that worked with a lot of families, building resilience among soldiers and families would sure make my quote-unquote job as an FRG leader or commander's wife easier. So I think that's great to try to get ahead of it. My concern, though, is that we have an entire generation now of military families and soldiers that have experienced significant trauma. With the comprehensive soldier fitness model, as far as I've been able to tell and the way at least it's being perceived on the feedback that I've gotten among some spouses, is that it doesn't acknowledge or give skill or tools to work the trauma before getting into the skill building and life skill building. And maybe it is, and maybe it's just the way it's being perceived. I got an email from a spouse that said, after 12 years as an Army wife and 4 deployments, giving me tips on how to be more resilient is like giving me tips on how not to get raped after it's already happened. And I think that's significant in her comment, because there's so much that we could learn from this training, but if people are turning away from it because they don't feel like it acknowledges their experiences, I think that's a concern.
Tom, if I could, that program that we're doing, it gets after that, because you gain points by going to behavioral health. You gain points by going to your military family and life consultant. And by the way, it gets rid of the stigma, because if you're going to go, I keep hearing military family life consultants tell me all the time, there's still a stigma. People don't want to go. I said, well, when they get 15 points and they end up getting a day off and it takes them over the top, they're going to tell you they went to the military family life consultant, and they're going to be happy about it, and that stigma is going to be erased. And when they start to take advantage of these support agencies, behavioral health and they'll get that treatment that you're talking about, because you're right, many of them need it. We all do in some regards. And now we'll just go out and find it. And I tell folks, you go out and get it even if you don't necessarily think you need it. And that's the people that we're looking for, because we're being preventative. It's not intervention.
And we're also focused as a training program on post-traumatic growth. And so maybe some of the perceptions that our program doesn't address trauma, or the things that you said, that could be true, but there are lots of other programs in the Army that are based, on suicide prevention, on mental health prevention. All of those programs are out there. So this one may not be the program that folks think it is, and it is a leadership training program for everyone. And yes, we are trying to get left of the target, and we're trying to make sure that we're preventive in terms of doing this as early as possible. But there are many, many other programs that can address some of the issues. So we're just, one of many tools in the toolbox for each commander. So that's what I'd say. Any other comments on that?
Yes, sir. I would just like to say also, we get those comments too, not to that extent, but I've already been deployed. This has already happened to me. But when they learn these skills, it teaches them how to deal with it a little bit better. Maybe they didn't have those coping strategies at the time, and they was doing what they thought was right, but they do get skills to help them be able to just bounce back a little bit higher and to move forward. But then they got skills, like Colonel Vail said. They may not need them right now, but when adversity do come up again or something do happen, they can pull this skill out and use it to help them move forward.
Oh yeah, and I completely agree. It's just that perception-wise, I think that as we roll this out, particularly to family members, it's something we might consider. My last thing is, I know this is an evidence-based program, but I know that this is the first time in this population. So what are we looking at in terms of metrics for success of CSF? I know you mentioned in the pilot that that I think that you're doing some of that, but what are our metrics for this program?
We have 17 studies that have gone on at University of Pennsylvania where we've replicated the situation, studied individuals, but that was more of a civilian type study. So we're asking them to do a meta study, a study that's a little bit more broad, and to look at control groups and brigades that have resilience. So we have some brigades that do not have MRTs purposely because we're going to use them as control groups until March. And we're going to be able to look at how they reacted to not having MRT training, folks in their brigades, and those that did. We have 3 studies at University of Nebraska, UNC Chapel Hill, and Chicago, University of Chicago, and at all 3 of those locations, we have research going on and studies going there. One of the most important ones is with HRC right now. We're going into their database and we're looking at, over time, promotion rates, just all kinds of personnel data points that could show that folks are being more progressive, excelling, kind of a merit-based study. And then Colonel McBride in the back of the room and Captain Paul Lester are psychologists and are analysts, research analysts on our staff, PhD level, that also interface and do smaller studies with RAND Corporation and others. So as we gather all that, and mainly feedback from the field, and the feedback that you're seeing, like General Tucker's chart, I mean, I'm taking that bad boy. That's cost-benefit analysis right there for us, for him to be able to show that kind of tangible result from the programs, not just our program, but how he's using all of those programs. So the metrics will mainly come from the field. We definitely have studies that we're doing right now, and then some pretty serious research within the organization. So that's how we're looking at it right now. Okay.
I think an indicator.
Sure.
I am anxious. I'm curious to see the first suicide ideation come from a soldier who is a graduate of resiliency training. I haven't seen it yet. We've been doing it since 1st of July. Haven't seen it yet. And my division surgeon oversees the implementation of our program, by the way. But that's again another metric. What is the plan? Well, the plan is if that in fact occurs, an interview would include some questions like, what tool did you not use that you had in your toolkit that could have prevented, you to get in this type of situation, to get so far down the slippery slope, so to speak. But there's dozens of metrics for us to measure how well this is going to work.
And the GAT produces trends also, trend lines for us that we can look at. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd caution a little bit on that. I mean, I hate to throw some cold water on this as I'm listening to people talk, because we have a very select group of people going through this training so far. I would be very surprised if any of them had suicide ideations either, because they're usually the very best coming out of the units. And I'd also caution a little bit because as the program was designed, and this is one of the challenges we're working through right now, and again, I hate to throw cold water, but I'll be honest and candid. As the program was designed, remember the title of it, Comprehensive Soldier Fitness. There are 5 different areas, but the University of Pennsylvania tends to lean more toward the emotional cognition piece. There are 4 other areas in this program. So I'm just a little concerned, and again, I'd also caution you, Tom, in using General Tucker's chart, even though it's a good one. One of the things that we also have to consider when we watch these things is the effect of leadership within an organization. This is a damn good division commander sitting next to me. And additionally, in about the December of 2009 timeframe is when we started to get, I hate to say it, better quality soldiers because we were past the surge. So there are all sorts of factors that play a role in this, and the Comprehensive Soldier Fitness Program is just one of many areas that we're looking at in terms of improving the quality of not only our soldiers but our family members and their resilience across the board, not just in the emotional standards, but in all 5 of the pillars.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question.
Sir, I guess
If I can just chime in on that, if you would mind.
Go ahead, sir. General Brooks.
I want to let you know that I think that one of the metrics has to be, let's just ask our soldiers, what did it do to them? And so when we actually have soldiers who didn't go through the Master Resilience Training Program, but have benefited from somebody who showed them how to increase their strength and showed them how to exercise, essentially. We get a lot of good feedback. Now, will those be scientifically based? They will not. But they are absolutely the proof of the program, and we shouldn't walk away from that. Sergeant Major Champagne and I spent some time with them today. And why don't you give some feedback on what you saw when you talked to those soldiers after our program today? If you can just give us just a second for that.
Yeah, we have a resiliency campus that we initiated here in Basra, Iraq, and we have a Victory Strong program, which is a focused effort for individual soldiers that takes them through a unique 5-day program in which they really focus on each dimension of strength that every day that they focus on. So one day they're focusing on the emotional pillar, then the physical pillar, then the social, then the family, and so on and so forth. And a great example is that we had a young specialist, as General Brooks and I were speaking to him today. He said, "I didn't know I was a jerk until I came to this program and how I treated people." And he says, now I have identified that trait in myself, and I am now working to be a better person. So, I mean, that's the type of feedback that you're getting from young specialists that come to the programs. Sir?
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just add one more thing, and I think what General Brooks said is exactly right on, because what we're seeing is it's not so much the Master Resiliency Training course, it's the personality of the individuals that went to the course and then how they pay it forward. You know, the drill sergeants and the AIT platoon sergeants that are going to this, they're tempering their skills a little bit. And even if they pick up one or two little techniques that can help them become a better trainer and that can be imparted to a young soldier as they are entering the force to help them become better, that's the momentum I think this program will hopefully gain for our Army and the Army family.
Probably take one more question.
Sir, I seem to have the mic, so I'll speak up. One question about the practicalities of the MRT course. If I understand correctly, 60 is considered a small class. We're looking at 150 to I think 180 at the University of Pennsylvania. That's difficult for any course. I know there's a preference of the War College and Leavenworth for small group instruction. And this is very personal stuff, very hard to deal with, perhaps, in a larger group. I'm curious, how you get effectiveness as opposed to, 150 sleepy people sitting in an auditorium looking at PowerPoint.
Sir, can I?
Sergeant Major.
Yeah, I can assure you they're not sleepy because they're very engaged with this. But there's a ratio. You have an instructor, master trainer, or as we have at Victory University, primary instructor, to that 1 to 60. Then they break down and go to a small group room, and that ratio is 1 to 30. But within that room, you have facilitators, and the facilitator is a 1 to 5 ratio. So now you get it broken down into a smaller number so they can learn, they can get their hands dirty with going through the skills to be able to understand the skills a lot better.
And at the unit, that's the MRT
That's the
certification.
MRT, yes.
But at the unit level where we're training, it's all done in a round table discussion where everybody's facing each other. And there's usually about 15 soldiers in the class, sometimes maybe up to 20 that are being facilitated by an MRT trained, certified trained instructor. And it's not a death by PowerPoint, it's all discussion.
Right. And your point is great, too, because if you try to do this in a big group, I think you will lose the effectiveness. So that ratio is key. So making sure you're trying to keep it at that level that the learning is being dealt with and the training is being understood at a greater pace.
And that's why we have the MRT, and then we have a 5-day course that brings someone up to an MRT facilitator, and then another 5-day course that brings them up to the MRT trainer. So there are not only echelons in the excellence or the standards of training, but more importantly, we do breakout groups. So everything's about the breakout group. The plenary session is not the majority of your time. The majority of your time is in a breakout group, facilitators with a 1 to 6, 1 to 10 ratio.
Yes,
Would
sir.
you say, Sergeant Major?
Yes,
And-
sir.
And I think that's where the real learning occurs. That's where they do role modeling, a lot of discussions, a lot of one-on-one, and a heck of a lot of peer-to-peer relationships and learning that goes on before, during, and after the course because of that breakout group.